Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Cabrera, and I'm going to be speaking to you about personality-based presentation. This is what it's going to be all about today. We're going to be talking about how you would present to your clients, whether they're buyers or sellers, how to convince them to work with you through understanding what type of personality they are. It's very important for you to understand that when we're working with people, we may have sometimes scenarios where we rub off on them the wrong way. And if you were wondering why, it's because some personalities clash with other personalities. So understanding your own personality is a very important thing to know, and to understand. What is your personality? From the studies that's been out there in psychology, there's generally 4 types of personality, or what they call tendencies. So the reason why I mention tendencies is because we're not always consistent with the way our personalities are. And what we're going to be discussing today are 4 types of personalities, which we all have all 4, but there's more dominant ones than others through the way we were raised or the way we are genetically. So if you're looking at it, if you're born with certain skills, well, the same thing, you're born with a certain type of personality, and that personality adjusts over time through the way your parents take care of you, the way your teachers take care of you, or teach you, or your peers influence you. So all these things have a factor in terms of how you grow up to be who you are today. And there's a certain amount of maturity level that you go through. Some people, they mature all the way till the day they die, or they're seniors, they're 60, 70. When I say mature, is a certain way of thinking, stability of the way your mind works. You produce more patience, you produce more humility, you understand more empathy. All those things are signs of maturity in that sense. And you may be adventurous, but yet you have certain cautiousness, or being cautious about certain things that you would do. In the beginning, when you're growing up, you intend to hang out with everybody that you want to hang out with. When you get older, you become more selective of who you want to be around. So, and finding happiness is is a basic premise of what we have around us and how we become who we are today. So what is your personality? Well, the way I broke it down and the way I understood how these color-coded personality types, I kind of tend to remember it this way. When you're an orange, it's dealing with being creative. And I'm going to give you more in detail in a minute how that works. But you're kind of the creative type, or the entrepreneur type, or the type of person that has no boundaries and you're looking for fun, and you're more geared towards the end of living life. And then you have the analytic type, the person that wants everything perfect and logical and makes everything making sense. Then you have the emotional type. The emotional type are the ones that are more empathetic, closer to people. They're like to hear what's going on in other people's lives. If you're this type of person, you're more kind of have that tendency going towards that direction, then that's how you would know what type of what kind of type of person you are in this particular color-coded thing. And then you have the conscientious type. The conscientious type are the ones that are dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's, making sure things work the way they need to work, and every single detail is actually covered, following the rules, that kind of scenario, and then makes you more comfortable when everything is in order. So those are the 4 types of personality. We all, like I said, all have that. All of these we all have in ourselves, and the only question is which one is our most dominant. Why do we want to know your dominant type of personality? Well, because we need to understand how we interact with our clients and fellow agents. Why would we want to do that? Well, that's how we can succeed in the business if we know how to interact properly. Because if you interacted awkwardly, people might not like you as much as if you interacted fluidly. So the dominant type of personality that your other person that you're talking to, you're communicating with, is very important to know, because the orange is more complementary to the gold. When I explain that is the orange type personality tends to be not detailed, but at the same time able to create things that the gold is not able to do. Whereas the gold are very detailed. So those two people working together work much more harmoniously than any other type of personality. So it's very important to know when you're hiring agents to work in your team, or you're hiring agents to work, or hiring assistants to work with you, it's kind of nice to know what type of personality they are, because if you put an orange into a position where they need detail orientation, I will wish you luck how long that person's going to last, or how happy that person's going to be. So the personality types makes a difference in terms of understanding what type of person you're dealing with and what type of work that you would want to assign to them. So in some cases, certain personality work better, just like I was explaining. Let's say if it's a technical work that you're looking for, someone who's more analytic actually will work better in that environment if they're selling very technical things. Now, if you're looking at selling houses and selling like less technical areas of the field, the orange tend to be more successful in that kind of environment. So, and then you have the blues that does very well in real estate as well, mainly because they connect much better with people, and they're able to have more clients through the connections that they have. So, and also when working with mentees, like right now I'm working with mentees, I kind of know what type of personality they are, so I can hone in exactly how I'm going to train them, how I'm going to teach them. It's more customized to how they are as a person, and more customized to how their environment looks like. So instead of having a particular way of doing certain systems and then you apply it to one person to the next person, it doesn't always apply that way. It applies much better when you're training and developing agents in your group or in your team, when you have a team, to understand what type of personality that person is, and then place them in the right position that would foster growth for them and make them more interested in that particular type of work. So when you're looking at the analytical type of person, you would tend to try to put them in a more inventive or more, I would say, technical side of things, and creating systems and processes. That would be something that they would be excellent at. And if you're looking at someone as an orange, you're looking at it from the creativity part, or being able to kind of use their skills to expand your reach in terms of vision and creating how far things are going to go. They're tend to be more optimistic and more positive in such a way. So like I said, all of us have this personality types in us. It comes out when we need certain things to do, when it becomes necessary for us to do certain things. But it's always nice to know who you're working with, what type of personality they are. So there's personality tests out there. I have one myself that I use for my agents. You can actually kind of work off of that and get an idea what direction you want to take your organization to if you're looking to grow your organization. How do you identify each type of personality? Well, it's through observation and also through experience. As now you're aware that there's different types of personalities, and if you understand and exactly what type of personalities they are, and you understand what type of personalities they are, then it would make sense for you to be able to see exactly what type of personality they are. I'll give you an example. If a person you're observing a person and they're going from one person to the next person to the next person, and they're like just laughing their way through the whole room, okay, more than likely that person is an orange. And if you see a person that's actually a little bit more introvert, but they're attracting more people around them, as an agent and as an individual that knows a lot of things, more than likely that's more of an analytical person. Now this is more generalized. Like I said, people have tendencies, so you cannot, in one observation, you will know exactly who that person is. Of course, it's a series of observation over time. You'll get to know the person even closer. But like I said, that's what the tests are for, if you're able to give a personality test. But unfortunately, when you're sitting down with a seller and you're trying to get that listing, you don't have that luxury of being able to be able to sit with them multiple times right away and know their personality. So you're just gonna need to actually observe their home, how they're keeping their home, observe how the husband or the wife or the spouse actually work in terms of how they interact. Then you will kind of get an idea what personality types they are. Now, if you're seeing someone more talking to somebody and they're getting really intimate about the conversation and kind of, touchy-feely type conversation, more than likely that's a blue personality. And then for the gold, I can tell you one thing, it's not, put it this way, about 60% of the population are gold. It's just the way, I guess, things are, but pretty much when you're observing somebody who's a gold, they tend to want to know the details of everything and making sure that they have all the information before they make any kind of decision. So understand something, when you're sitting down with your clients, knowing this personality type makes a huge difference what type of presentation you're going to give. Why do you want to identify your client's personality type? So you can customize the presentation. Or the communication that you would use to maximize your influence with your client. I'll give you an example. I went to a listing appointment not too long ago, and I had like the owner, the husband and wife, happened to be interviewing 6 agents to try to list their property. 6 agents. So I'm one of the 6 agents, and I'm not even the last agent. But the biggest difference is when I came into that room, the first thing I was thinking about is, what type of personality am I dealing with? Well, I started asking questions. That's one way to actually figure out what type of person people are. So start asking questions. What are you looking to do? What's your objective? And the husband says, well, let me show you. This is my plan. I have this plan all written out, and I have all this series of questions. So now I'm thinking, okay, either he's an analytical type of person or more of a detail-oriented, conscientious type person. So that's the first thing I thought about, because he wasn't really much concerned about how I'm doing or how his wife is doing. But then the wife, on the other hand, was more kind of asking me like, yeah, you have children, started talking about, about their grandkids and stuff like that. And I started asking questions more as I figured out she was actually a blue. So, but I couldn't figure out the husband yet, what type of personality he had for me to actually create the presentation the way I would want it. So put it this way, I adjust my presentation, even though I have the same presentation, I adjust the presentation whether I'm going to be very detailed on the presentation or focus more on the numbers on the presentation, or I'm going to focus more on the details on the presentation, or I'm not even going to do the presentation at all. Most of the people that I meet that are orange, I don't even bother putting out my presentation package because I'll bore them to death. So what I do with those orange people is go around the room and actually have them explain to me what's exciting about the property, because they're more fun, all about fun and excitement, and trying to actually get them riled up about it and get them excited about selling a home, getting them excited about creating, what they're going to be doing in the future. So looking at it from the orange perspective, I don't even do my presentation at all. I hardly do. I will actually set it aside and focus on that person and give more attention to what makes it more interesting, the conversation. So I couldn't figure out the person if he was a gold or a green. So the way I was able to do that, I was able to figure out which one he was, is the way he explained to me what he wanted to do. And everything fell on the numbers. And I'm talking about I want my house to be this price because I've gone through this process of eliminating this house and looking at this house and start comparing, doing all this comparison with the houses. And this is the number, and I'm looking actually to net this amount of money. I've looked it up here and I've done this. So he was doing all this research. So I came to realize he was more a green because he wanted, and he was talking about the logic behind why certain things we would be doing certain things on the property to make sure that the property sells. So those kind of giveaways gave me an idea that he was a green. So what I had to do is when I pulled out my presentation, I actually focused on the numbers. And I focused on the numbers. I focused on what's logical, why their house is going to sell a certain way, why a person would think that the house is actually a good place to move to, what type of people are actually, what families or who individuals or whatever, why they would be attracted to the home, the number of bedrooms, the amount of baths, that kind of stuff, and how we would actually convince them to actually, so we can get multiple offers. Well, that in mind, it makes a difference. Now, I have another client, so when I presented that, of course, out of the 6 people that I was competing with, I ended up getting the listing. That's the bottom line, mainly because I got the wife all riled up about the stories I told about family and all the lovey-dovey stuff that I was explaining to her about my life and asking her about her life, and we connected that way. And with the husband, actually, with all the numbers and the logic that I put into the presentation, he really enjoyed it and loved it, and the fact that he learned something that he didn't know before made a big difference for me to pick up that listing. Now, I have another client. In this particular, this person actually lived by herself, and she wanted to sell her home and move closer to the city where she works at. So she wanted me to list the property. So I came there, and I know the type of person she is because I've worked with her before. I was the one who sold her the house, and I know she's a blue. So I never even took out my presentation. All we were talking about is how the kids are doing, how her kids are doing, and we were talking about like the past and all these things that happened in the past, what memories she had with her husband. Unfortunately, her husband already passed away. So she was telling me like how beautiful their relationship was and how I should take care of my relationship. So that's what the whole conversation, that was the listing presentation for you, okay? So looking at it from that connection, everything else fell into place. She asked me what I'm looking to charge, what the listing price. I mean, it was just direct. I told them exactly, and then we moved on. We never even talked about it anymore. She never asked anything more. She didn't actually try to haggle about it, mainly because there's a certain amount of trust built up, but it's through the connection that we have emotionally. So you could actually literally pick up a listing and not have a presentation done. I know you want to standardize everything as much as possible, which is great because then the one person can pick up from the next person. But you can standardize certain things in your business, but the people cannot, unfortunately, fall on the same category each time. So there's a better connection if you understand the type of person you're dealing with. How does personality relate with your listing or buyer presentation? Well, it's the way you would interact with your clients and how you would present your information and assert influence. And this is essentially what I've done with these listings that I come up with. Another thing I can tell you is if you know the person's personality, it makes a big difference also in terms of how you work with them. And when I say how you work with them is what kind of things that you would do to make sure that that client would continue working with you. One of the things I always tell my client is that I only look for loyalty, and you'll always have 100% of my effort and energy to try to help you get to your goal. That's one of the things that I require for me to work with a client. If I know the client is telling me like, oh, I'm going to be working with two other buyer agent, then I explain to them the reasoning behind why being loyal to one agent is much better, because that person will put 100% of their effort in, and you will get better results that way. But then also at the same time, depending on their personality, then I kind of influence them in a way that they not only understand that this is the requirement that I have in order for them to work with me, but it's also something that would benefit them. And by showing them value through understanding what they're looking for with an agent, but through understanding their personality, then I could kind of explain to them, hey, listen, the way I would take care of you is not just through the transaction. If this person I'm talking to is a blue, when we finish this transaction, we will actually throw a housewarming party. Of course, right now it's not a good time, but I normally would throw a housewarming party for them, invite their friends, and paint a picture of like closeness and camaraderie, that kind of thing, right? So if a person's a green, I let them know, listen, my goal is to get you the best numbers, trying to get you to the goal, the goal that you have in terms of being able to purchase the next home. So for us to get there, I have a whole plan that we're gonna go through that makes sense logically, and I go through every single one of them and get them to understand it's what makes sense. And then you have the golds, right? The golds, when I'm talking to them, the buyers now I'm talking about, and what I would want to do is to have really a kind of practically a manual of exactly how we're going to go through every single process, and every single questions that they have definitely will be answered one way or another, and I'll give them assurance that it's going to happen. And also in the beginning, I give them something of a list of things that's going to happen, so they know they have a checklist, because golds have a tendency of loving a checklist. They enjoy actually getting things done. So with that type of personality, that's usually the approach that I take for the buyer side. And then when you have an orange, well, we just have fun, because I'm also an orange. So I get along with orange very well. And I know why I mean, many different ways I know I'm an orange is not only through my peers, but also through a test that I've actually done with multiple tests and different, like Myers-Briggs and different DISC tests, and the personality color test. So I've done all these testing in terms of what my personality is. I'm very consistent as being an orange in that sense. So I know when I can see an orange, I can spot an orange, because we'll be laughing the whole time through the whole process. It's just a fun thing. We make it a fun environment for us, very positive a lot of the times, and getting it through the whole process of buying a home for them. What is an orange personality type? Now we're going to get into a little bit more detail. This is according to this website. And actually, it's interesting. If you Google this and you put orange personality type, the first one you see is the color personality from a university. So you can get into this a little bit more if you wanted. But I only put like the more tendencies of how people are being an orange. Tend to be witty, spontaneous, generous, optimistic, eager, and bold. They need fun, variety, stimulation, and excitement. Those are the characteristic of an orange person. But for everything that you see here that looks so positive, right? There's also the negative side, the downside of orange. Orange has a scenario where they are so outgoing and free that they probably annoy the heck out of everybody else, because they don't go through the details that everybody else goes through. They don't go through the analysis of what everybody else goes through. They don't go through the whole empathetic part where some other people actually go through. They just the way they are, and sometimes it kind of comes across as being self-centered or being arrogant or things like that. So that's kind of how they get presented in a nutshell. So like I said, for oranges, this is the way I look at it. I keep it fun. I keep it simple. This is what orange loves. Keep it simple and keep it going, because they get bored so easily on anything, any details that you're going to have to put out there. They tend to actually get bored very easily. So like I said, but then again, like I told you before, we have all four parts of the personality, right? So if the dominant could be both an orange and a green. Such as myself, I'm actually more of an orange and a green. I'm actually very, very analytical, but my orange is actually more dominant than my green, but not very much so. So I'm very close, like tied into to both. So being that type of person, I can relate very well also with people that are more analytical like math-minded or science-minded, that kind of stuff. We can have conversations all day long with those, with that type of person. It doesn't mean I'm just that one personality. That's my point. We're all those personalities. What is a green personality type? Well, the green personality type tend to be perfectionist, analytical, conceptual, cool and calm, inventive, and logical. A lot of the greens out there, I can tell you right now, you can imagine, they're the geeks of the world, or what we sometimes call geeks of the world, but at the same time, though, they're very calm compared to an orange. So they look at the world more logical, so they don't panic in a lot of cases because they know exactly what it looks like on the other side. They tend to kind of calculate everything that they do, so they know what to expect. So there's not a lot of unexpected things that happen in their lives. I personally sometimes call it boring because I'm an orange, but at the same time, though, somebody who's that way is perfectly fine. I mean, this is who we are, and they enjoy finding knowledge and seeking knowledge and understanding, always looking for explanations, for answers. They're very explorative. So, when you're talking to somebody analytical, if you're gonna really connect with those people, you better be versed in a lot of areas and be somewhat have that type of connection that you can make. Otherwise, they're gonna get bored to death on you if you're not able to connect with them in that way. So just keep that in mind. If you know the person ahead of time, it's even better. Then you can research certain things that they may know that they might actually have common ground. Then you can connect with them in areas that they're familiar with. So if you're talking to an IT person and you're going to be presenting and you know he's an IT person, assume he's more than likely, if he's enjoying his job, of course, more than likely a green personality. So if being a green personality, kind of get to know exactly what kind of field he's in and get to learn a little bit about that field. So then when conversation comes out that way, then you'll have something to talk about, at least something that he's interested in. What is a blue personality type? Well, they tend to be enthusiastic, sympathetic, communicative, compassionate, idealistic, sincere, and imaginative. They care and want to contribute to everything they are part of. Relationships are important to the blues. So this type of part of the personality I also have, of course, like I told you before, not as dominant as the orange and the green. The blue is actually the next one that I have in terms of my personality. So it's actually, I go from orange, orange, green, and then blue. So looking at it from understanding your personality type, I'm telling you, it's really good because you can bring out that part of your personality that will connect with people. If you want to influence people, the number one thing you have to understand is when you're sitting with one-on-one with a person and you want to connect with them, you tend to want to mimic. So then what they are doing or who they are as a person, not necessarily in a fake way, but more in a natural way, so that the person feels comfortable about being around you. And that's very important to know, because I was mentoring another agent the other day, and he brought in a client, and I know the type of personality the client was. The client's personality is green. So when my agent, who happens to be a blue, started talking about all these other things outside of more like a blue, yeah, he's definitely more like a blue. So he was talking about things that are not related to real estate or trying to present himself a certain way, and I was sitting there and I'm actually like looking at this and saying, how do I win over the client? Well, I win over the client through understanding her personality type. So I went directly to the point, because it's gonna bore to death the client sitting there talking about what we can do and who we are and what we've done in the past and and bring back memories and stuff like that. And for the green, all the green wants to know is what's the bottom number. So it's interesting because I don't have a presentation in there. I'm going in there completely blind. As soon as I walk in there, since I was trying to help him win over the listing, the first thing I try to understand is what kind of personality this person have. So So as I started asking questions, where you go, what's your plans, what are you looking to do, da da da, I kind of figured out already that she just wants to get to the bottom line. And so the first thing I said, hey, listen, let's cut to the chase. I know exactly that what she's looking for is what are the bottom numbers, or can we achieve the bottom number, whatever she's looking for. So the first question I asked for her is, how much do you want to walk away with on this property? And she exactly knew. She's like, I want to walk away with $30,000. I was like, okay, all right. And then knowing the fact that she's a green, I already knew that she did the research, know exactly what neighbor sold for what price. And I just directly asked her, I said, so how much do you want to sell the property for? And her answer was, well, this one person actually did this and sold it for this amount, but slightly bigger property, and this other person. So she did the whole calculation thing for me. So I should be around like 150. I'm like, okay. So you already know, you have an idea. And to be honest with you, I know the area very well, and it looks like you're hitting the number. So I tell you what, let's leave it at 150. We'll make it move forward. Right? So it's very important that you know what type of personality that you're working with. So knowing the fact that she was a green, that's the direction I took the conversation. Very, very precise. And she loved it. And I tell you, why I know she loved it is because after that conversation, everything else actually kind of, all the walls came down. We started talking about other things, move on, that kind of stuff. So it's very important when you're sitting down with a person is to understand what type of personality they are, because you're going to bore them to death if you don't actually hit the right communication or the right subject at a certain precise time. Now, if I know the person is more of an orange, then the presentation doesn't even have to go into details in terms of the presentation. What that person wants to know is, when are we going to be able to sell this house? Okay, all right, okay, and I'll trust you how much you want to list the property for. That's basically, I had a listing appointment with one of my mentees. Actually, she picked up the listing this way, and I'm sitting down with her client, and I know the guy is an orange, even though he's actually also a green, analytical, just very similar to my personality, but I know for a fact that he's more of an orange because he never looked for the details. He was looking for just the basic answers and then trying to figure out if he can trust us or not. I mean, that's usually what an orange does. If the orange feels like they can trust you, they go by gut feeling, okay, that's good, let's go ahead and move on. And then you have of course, the blues again. If I come across those all the time, and I explained to you earlier how I picked up that listing. But at the same time, though, when you're looking at golds, detail is very important. So if you said that you're going to send a listing agreement at a certain time and it doesn't happen, or you make a mistake on the MLS description of the property or the price of the property, you're dead. I mean, you're dead in the water with a gold. So just be very careful. If you know you're dealing with a gold, try not to make that many mistakes because they're not very tolerant of that. And checklists, like I said to you earlier, is very good for golds to have because they feel more at ease. So they're looking for more security and stability in working with you, consistency, and being able to be predictable. So the more predictable you are with a gold, the better off you are in that sense. So going to the gold now, the personality of the gold to be loyal, dependable, organized, thorough, sensible, punctual, and caring. They notice and remember facts like directions and instructions, set deadlines and want them to be met. They enjoy checklists and checking off things off the list. This is how you win a gold over. You want to win a gold over? This is it. You need to actually be on your top of your game. Be focused on making sure that when you say something that you're going to do, you get it done. Okay? The orange is more tolerable of it. The blues are even more tolerable of it if they actually connected with you so well. Okay? But the gold, you're done. So you have to be very precise on those terms. So same thing with the greens. The greens are they're also looking for precision and making sure things, because it's logical for things to happen if you say it's going to happen. That's the reason why the greens are very similar to the golds in that sense. Now, what should you do to apply this knowledge to your real estate career? Do more personal development and get more in depth with this subject, because I'm giving you an overview, something that I'm trying to introduce to you that is not being said or trained, you're not being trained on as much. But psychology plays a huge part in our business. You want to succeed in this business, every single person that you meet out there, if you know how to present yourself, will become a client for you. Okay? So it's very important to know the personality types of people for you to be able to connect with those people. So do more personal development is a very important aspect of growing into this business. Create customized presentation while being aware of your audience. This is good as well, because by creating your presentation and imagining the different types of personality that you get to meet out there, knowing how you're going to approach, you're going to be able to pick up those listings a lot more frequently, even if you're competing with many agents. See, understand something. If you're competing with a top producer out there and you can connect with a personality type, the person is going to more than likely choose you over that top producer. Why? Because the person can relate to you better. And relating to the other, to your owners who's looking to sell their home, relating to your buyers, understanding what their needs are, is what people are looking for in terms of service. And that's what you're going to be looking for as well. You, as a consumer, will constantly be looking for someone that would fulfill what you're looking to do or what you're trying to accomplish. And if the person understands you more than the other person, I don't care what that person does, or if that person is even highly trained or even better trained than you, it doesn't matter. If you can connect with them, relate to them much better, and understand where they're coming from, understand what they're trying to accomplish, you more than likely will be their agent. Develop and internalize scripts that attract each type of personality. When you're out there, you're going to have certain ways to speak to certain people. And by understanding what their personality type, what your personality type, then you can create something that you could say to people that would kind of connect with them. And you can experiment on this more than anything, but don't sound like a script. I mean, make it natural. So you need to actually practice this with your, whoever you're with or whoever you're partner with. If you're trying to perfect your script, you always have to do role play. This is something that's a given. I role play with my mentees all the time because I want them to make sure that they know exactly how to say certain things, and then I know exactly where they're going wrong. Because see, it only takes one word or one phrase or one sentence to turn someone off, and then that's it. No matter what else you actually say at that point, doesn't really matter. So being able to kind of fine-tune your way of speaking to people and understanding what type of personality they are is very critical for your success as well. So understand yourself better by taking a personality test to see how you could relate to your clients better. I took IQ tests. I took personality tests. Well, mainly because I wanted to know for myself where I stand in terms of where everybody else is. So knowing that gives me more confidence that I'm doing very well and I'm always improving. I'm trying to gauge myself if I'm actually growing or I'm not. So personal development, after several years, I take my IQ test again because I'm constantly reading books and listening to audiobooks to learn more things about like how I can apply it to the kind of field I want to get into, what kind of business I want to get into, in the real estate business, that kind of stuff. So practice how to identify and interact with different personalities. This is really where it boils down to. Know your personality and know other people's personality and know what interacts well and how you can interact with them. Okay? So, appearances make impressions, but it is the personality that makes an impact. So this is a quote that I saw online. It's 101 quotes at about.com. So, and this is my quote. Your personality is what makes everything work. See, things can go wrong in your career. Things can go wrong on your transaction. But if you have the right way of approaching things, there's solutions to everything that's out there. And I'm talking about everything. I'm not even excluding anything. As long as you're connected with your client in such a way that they understand. So I've actually had clients that didn't get to buy a house because someone made a mistake somewhere, but I was able to kind of communicate and connect with them very well to a degree that they came back and actually worked with me again. Or we were in the middle of a transaction, they lost the house for some reason or another, but the way I interacted with them caused the client to work with me again. So even with agents, I had agents before where the day that the settlement happened, the buyer walked away. It happened to be my buyer, and the listing agent was so upset. But that same listing agent today still is a good friend of mine, and we still work together on transactions because it's the way I handled myself working with him and talking to him. And bottom line is, your personality takes your business to the next level. And I will see you on the top. Thank you.